right? And back in the day, I believe in the 70s, it was more karate, right? They were martial arts. And then the Grace family show up and say, hey, man, I want to surf here too. And one day this guy come and say, hey, no, you won't. I'm a black belt karate, blah, blah, blah. If you surf here, we're going to fight. They call me Lang, my last name. Lang, you have skinny legs. I said, oh, no shit, I know that. You don't need to tell me that. I think the keep looking for improvement is the main thing, right? What happens in Jiu-Jitsu? You tap and you try again. You tap and you try. You don't tap and quit, right? The rounds keep going. The rounds is 10 minutes. If you tap in 2, you try again. But also real in Portuguese means river. And talk about the flow aspect, right? As Bruce Lee used to say, be water, my friend.
Newsflash, 11,000 people watch this channel, but only 10% are actual subscribers. Before we get to the recording, I want to come to you with a direct call to action. I want you to subscribe. We have some things cooked up that are bigger guests, bigger production value, different series that we can only do with the support from people like you. If you like what we're doing, click the subscribe button so that we can give you the information, the content that you deserve. Go ahead and click the subscribe button. Awesome. Thank you so much. In this recording of the BPR podcast, I'm joined by my coach and world champion, Rafael Lang, 4th degree black belt, 5th degree this coming year. He's been doing jiu-jitsu for
almost 30 years now. Yeah,
30 years, longer than most people have been alive. And in this episode, we're going to break down all of the reasons that you should do jiu-jitsu. We're going to break down all of the misconceptions that you have. And I think that you'll really enjoy the conversation that we'll have here. Thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me, man.
Well, thank you again for doing this. It's a real
pleasure. Thank you for inviting.
Real honor.
Real honor to be here, man. I think one of the great things that I feel being here is it's just not because you being student from Otávio and then we keep the connection and then now you being student at the gym too. It's also I can see by far the great person that you are. You know, the way you treat people, the great father that you are. If that makes sense. It's honorable what we do because you add to the community. Of course, you make money. It's a busy, but you make money and kind of helping people to have better lives. So that's the thing that I believe too. So I feel very connected.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I feel like it's very seamless because Jiu-Jitsu is the same. Yeah, we make money as a busy, but it's not about the money. It's about make other people's life better and end up making my life better too. You know,
I was telling, we have a younger coach, and I was just telling him that you were coming, and I was excited. And I said, there's a lot of parallels that maybe a lot of people get into jiu-jitsu and they don't realize what you just said. Like they don't realize that it's actually to make their life better.
Yeah.
You know, are we good? We're good. We'll just start talking. You know, they get into it because they have poor self-esteem or they've had some experience where they didn't feel like they could protect themselves. Or on the other end of the spectrum, they feel like they're a pretty tough guy and they want to see how tough they can be. But all of those things feel like very short term. It feels very much like I have a problem that I need to solve and the solution needs to come as quickly as possible. But what you just said is, I think why jiu-jitsu is so great, that it does make your life better. But making your life better needs to be something that makes it better for a long, long time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can do this for a long term, years and years, right?
Has that changed for you? Because when you came, what year was it that you came to Dallas?
I started to come to Dallas in 2016 because I was teaching seminars in U.S., like Michigan, California, and Otávio called and said, hey, man, why don't you stop here in Dallas? And, you know, he's my coach since I was 9 years old, so first, to see him was the main thing that I decided to come to Dallas because the last time I saw him in 2016, maybe it was in 2012 or 2013, so it's been like 2 years without seeing him. And I said, okay, I'll stop by. And no, please teach a seminar. And I know people will be excited to have you here. And spend 1 week here with me so we catch up and then we can see the gym because maybe I will move to Italy. He was already thinking about moving to
Oh,
Italy.
really? Oh, I didn't know that.
In 2016. So I felt, okay. So I always had some people invite me, right, to before I was in Australia, that I loved that country back in the day. I teach the army there, and I teach jeans, and I fought, and I did a bunch of workshops. In 2009, 2010, US, I went a lot to Europe as well. And then, I don't know, I was the connection with Otávio, and I was listening to him as a mentor. So he said, man, I think he's a good opportunity. Just have a kid, right? Brazil is not going really well now, economic-wise, and then the violence. So maybe I think the market's growing. It's a good opportunity for you. So I tried to listen to him as I always did. He's just more experienced than me in life and in jiu-jitsu. So that's when I first started coming, was 2016. And then I stayed maybe 2 weeks teaching at Octagon. And then I also went to Denton. Mark Reddings is a big fan of mine nowadays. Yeah. And I spent like some time with him too. It was one of the first friends I did in Dallas. I met in Dallas. And then that was the first time. And then I started coming back because I always travel to do seminars and sometimes to do fights. And I love the people. I love the lifestyle in terms of like family orientation, and people take care of themselves. They are serious. They are honest. So I could say a good place to live.
What has changed for you? Because it's been almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Is that how you felt when you started teaching seminars and you started traveling, and then when you relocated to Dallas? Was it about the lifestyle? Or for you, was it at some point like really about the competition? It was really about the sport?
To be honest, when I moved to Dallas, it was about my family, right? I want to make sure that my son will be raised in a nice place with good people around, right? In a good community, right? And I see Dallas as a place to raise family, as a good place to raise family. The lifestyle, yes, right? You can see Dallas has a good fitness community and all that. But I grew up in Rio de Janeiro, which is a beach town with mountains and all that. And I was always like raising very well connected with nature, right? And Dallas is a little bit flat, right? So as you know, there's no mountains and there is no beach. But also, it's not hard to travel from Dallas to different places. In the U.S., it's such an amazing country, so much beauty to see and to explore. So I thought, okay, man, maybe I live in Dallas. I have this great opportunity for my son to be raised in a nice place, to build family here. And I travel 2 hours, 3 hours, and I can explore so much and relate to nature. But what I like here is that people take things serious. You know what I mean? Like in Brazil, sometimes it's awesome, but it's so laid back sometimes that, okay, man, we're 8 o'clock. And then 8 o'clock, the guy is just like, man, it's 8 o'clock. Oh my God, I better get in the car now. You know what I mean? Like, and you're there since 8 o'clock. So I was raising like 8 o'clock, you should be there 10 before 8. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's a kind of match with Dallas, because if I say 8 o'clock, the person will be there at 8 o'clock. I like that. You know, like, so that it's easier to grow the way, it's easier to make things happen and be productive the way.
Yeah.
So
I have a question for you, and I've always wondered this. How did, because there's so many different niches in jiu-jitsu, right? There's self-defense, there's the competition. From a lifestyle standpoint, like we're talking about, there's this connection with surfing.
yeah.
Is that just because Rio is a beach town, or like what? Like how did that connection happen?
Well, if you go back in the day, the old school, how that happens, like, yes, Rio is a beach town, and the truth is that Rio de Janeiro, I think from the back in the 70s, 80s, there is a lot of influence from Hawaii and the surf community, actually, that in U.S., as far as I know. And so they will look in the magazines and see the surf. We have the beach, we have good waves. So people are always surfing, right, in Brazil, especially in Rio de Janeiro. And what happened is the Grace family, right? They also live nearby the beach, and they are surfers. And that's always the localism aspect, right? Though we locals, we surf here. So if you want to surf, you got to go on the side, right? Because we're here every day, we live here. So, and these always lead to fights, right? And back in the day, I believe in the 70s, it was more karate, right? They're martial arts. And then the Grace family show up and say, hey, man, I want to surf here too, right? And one day this guy come and say, hey, no, you won't. I'm a black belt karate, blah, blah, blah. If you surf here, we're going to fight. And maybe, I think it was Hollis, right? They say Hollis, the older one. Say, no, man, I will surf here. And then they end up in a fight on the beach. I think it was in Arpoador Beach. And the guy was a black belt in karate. And I'm not going to say names, right? But I know who it is. And then they get in a fight on the sand. And House was like skinnier than him, smaller than him, and easily put him down and control him and mount. And without hurt him, control the fight, say, man, are we good? Right? And the guys, from that moment, the guy was one of the big names in the surf community in Rio. He said, I think we're good, right? And that's when these things start to happen, when the surf community start to open their eyes for this and say, well, we better learn this thing, right? If we want to be really secure the localism, we better learn how to fight. And I think Hollis, the Grace family, even though they try to prove the official of the martial arts, they at the same time, they are welcome. They want to invite you to learn this. Does that make sense? It's not like, oh, I want to beat you and take control there. No, I want you to learn this. Because when you learn this, you're going to be a better person. Your confidence go up. You don't need to prove yourself all the time. You're even going to be a better human being. So I think this aspect, a kind of this inclusive thing that the Grace family had back in the day, make the community of the surf community have a good relationship with the jiu-jitsu community, make the skateboard community also have a good, that makes sense? So if you meet a good, real jiu-jitsu guy, he's a nice guy. He doesn't look around trying to beat people. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that was the start.
That's cool, because there's a really strong, like, connection there. It's not just like, oh, well, you know, these guys happen to be doing both. Like, I've been places where, surf fight in, do you know the school? In Del Mar, Joe Tudor. Like, they have surfboards on the roof, and you can go in there and be like, they're changing out of board shorts because they just serve to do jiu-jitsu.
You know, the influence is so big. Back in the day, we have a brand in Rio de Janeiro called Surf Fight.
Oh, really?
It was a brand, right? It was a close brand, and it was super cool, and there was a little popular back in the day. I'm talking about maybe early 90s or end of 90s. It was super popular. And the influence is so big that the no-gi, when we trained back in the day, the hash guard was actually from surfers.
Oh, really?
Yes, right? And instead of Speedos, we would use the surf shorts, right? So that's how big was the influence, and the community was so connected.
That's funny. You know, as a similar example in CrossFit, which is our background, it started in Santa Cruz. And because we would look at these videos online and be like, well, we want to do this just like those guys. And they were wearing board shorts because they just got out of the ocean.
And then you start to use board shorts.
So for a long time, we would wear board shorts. You know, we're in the middle of Dallas, but we're wearing board shorts just because, hey, that's the uniform. That's what everybody's wearing. So I've always been curious about the rash guards. And, my suspicions were true that it came from just like seeing surfing. I always wondered, and we talked about this a little bit the other day, that there's a part of jiu-jitsu, unlike other sports, that you can't control. I can't really control you if we're rolling together, but I want to respond. And instead of, you know, one method is to really try to resist whatever it is that you're doing. And the other is to almost allow you to do what it is that you want to do and redirect that towards what I want. And I've always wondered in surfing, because you can't control the ocean, but you're trying to redirect that, you know.
Control the board.
Yeah, philosophically, you know, is there some
connection?
Yeah, some connection or similarity where it's like, hey, you know, we have this thing in common where we're trying to be really creative against this external force that I can't really pin down and do what I want it to do. I don't know. Agree or disagree?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And that's why when we opened the Rio Jiu-Jitsu lifestyle, Rio de Janeiro is the city. It was the mecca of the Jiu-Jitsu. The Grace family spread Jiu-Jitsu in Rio, and this go to everywhere. It is. But also Rio in Portuguese means river. And talk about the flow aspect, right? As Bruce Lee used to say, be water, my friend. Right? So it's a kind of this relative thing. It's a big concept in Jiu-Jitsu, right? Because if you want to beat someone stronger than you, it's not trying to be stronger than him that's going to solve your problem, but using his strength. That's a smart way. So this flow aspect that you say, you cannot stop the wave, but you can control the board. You can control your behavior when you're on the wave. And you use the energy from the wave to go wherever you means to go or you want to go. There's a big concept, right? And the 1, 2, 3 concept that we were talking class another day, remember? So I do a first move, because I want to generate a response, right?
I've thought about that 15 times since you said it.
Yes, because actually what I want to accomplish is the third one. The first move is just to create a response for my opponent. And the third one, that's when I will cut in something. So I do one thing, I push you to bring your resistance. So I know when I push, you're going to push back. And then I'm going to use this move to apply something, right?
It's so, you said that and then just walked away. So what he said was, it's like, I think of setting things up as 1, 2, 3. 1, I want to get a response out of you. 2, whatever you do, I'm going to redirect that into 3, what I wanted to do in the first place.
Yeah.
And he said that and just walked away. And I've thought about that 15 times since he said that, because it's a simple concept, but it's not easy. It's simple, but it takes like a lot of, I mean, to me, it feels like I have to know the reaction of most of these things that I want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think like you do performance behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk behavior, it's so important for anything in life. Like I think jiu-jitsu will teach you how solve problems over stress, adrenaline, and you need to first control your behavior, your emotions. I feel fear. I feel angry. I feel too much confidence when I should be more precautious. Does that make sense? So with jiu-jitsu, you're going to be a little more like rational and learn to deal with your emotions, right? And then you see the connection that Rickson always bring from the breathing aspect to try to hold your emotions or control better your behavior. And then you start to feel, okay, if I can control myself and the way I respond to things, it will start to be easier to control the scenario that I'm facing. And then I can solve the problems better. So I think the behavior is a very important thing. So when you're calm enough and confident enough to stop, to control the person and think, I'm not going to just respond with one move. I have a plan. I'm calm. I'm not too emotional here. I'm not angry. I'm not afraid. So I will do the first move to get a response. So I attack on the third one. That's my goal. So they behave details a lot, right? You see the beginners, they spasm a lot. They just respond to stimulus all the time. They don't have a plan. Jiu-jitsu will teach you to control your emotions, have a better behavior over stress, over adrenaline. That's someone on top of you when you feel suffocated or even you feel like this claustrophobic scenario. And instead to just panic and behave like explosive, what are you going to do? Now I have a plan. I have a way out. I'm going to control these emotions that I'm feeling, and I'm going to start to find a way out.
Yeah.
And there is always a way out, right? So
that's good. The thing that comes on my mind is like there's in psychology, there's these different levels of control. And the things that you really have control over are your breathing, your thoughts, the choices you make, you know, your actions.
Yes.
Right outside of there, there's things that you can influence, but you can't control. Yeah. I can pull on your lapel to influence you to then react by going backwards. Yeah. Now, by me pulling on your lapel, it doesn't demand that you're going to do that, but it is a very strong influence.
Yes, yes.
And then the thing that's outside that we have no control over, we're very concerned with. That's like what you're going to do, what the sequence of movements that you might do if we're talking jiu-jitsu specifically. But I think that is jiu-jitsu is a beautiful symbolism, and it's a beautiful way to practice stress management. Until you said that, I don't know if I really, really appreciated how effective that is. It's such a great place. And even though it's physical and it's no words and it's not sometimes the psychological stress that would happen to most people outside of the gym, I think it's a pretty close approximation of what you just said. I'm feeling something. Okay, it's okay to feel that, but like, how do I calm down? We talked about this last week, right? How do I decide what I should do? Yeah. And even though I can't get rid of this physical stress, how am I going to keep going?
Yeah.
Right? That to me is the reason that I was telling the coach out there is like, hey, you don't have to, this doesn't have to become your identity, but I think everybody's got to do jiu-jitsu.
It's going to add you so much to your life skills.
Yes.
It's a life skill.
Yes. And then you said something earlier about, you know, the Gracies on the beach with the, you know, karate master, and you mimicked basically that they were in mount position, controlling their arms and saying, hey, are we cool? Are you ready to stop the fight?
Yeah.
And this, 2 days ago is what you taught my 3 daughters, like literally the same words.
Yes. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's unbelievable, like the application of this. And I'm not just saying that because my kids are doing it and that I'm a big fan of yours, but just to, so he went through this. This is now, I guess, like the 3rd week.
Yeah.
And from a kid's standpoint, it's just games. Like they're just playing to start.
Yeah.
And we know that he's showing them a butterfly guard position, and he's showing them a technical stand-up, and he's showing them how to sprawl. But to them, they're just goofing around. And then he's put these things together where in this last class, he had them go from somebody pushing them down to basically ending up in a mount position. And he had them cue the same things every single time. Once they were in control, he would say, now it's time to negotiate.
Yes. Negotiator time.
And in that position, you said 3 things, right? It was, hey, are we cool?
Yeah.
And these little girls and these little children are saying it in such a, I mean, this is beautiful. It almost brings me to tears. He's coaching them not just to say those words, but he's like, hey, say it with confidence. And I don't know if kids are getting that in any other form, right? Where they get to have permission to be strong and to feel powerful.
I'm in command of
and
this.
to feel like they're in control.
Yeah.
And so the 3 things remind me, it was, hey, are we cool? And then you said,
Stay confident.
yeah.
Look in the eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what did you say after that? It was like, are you ready to stop the fight?
You're ready to stop the fight. We're cool. I don't want to hurt you.
Yes.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And the third one, if the aggressor keep behaving like, right, in an aggressive way, you first ask for help because there's someone around who could help to hold the person. You don't really need to hurt the person.
Yeah.
In the worst case scenario, there's no help around and the person keep trying to hurt. Okay, then we're going to use a technique, maybe a choke. So when you can put the person out without hurt them, right? So that's the progressive way that I see, because I think the beauty of jiu-jitsu, you can protect yourself without hurt someone, right? That's why it's so efficient for police enforcement, for a bouncer in a club, right, in a bar. That's why it's so efficient. And we talk about kids. Kids fights all the time, right? They're learning how to deal with emotions in life. You go to a high school, you go to a middle school, sometimes they get in a fight, sometimes it's a bully, right? But you don't want another kid to break another kid's arms. Even though it's just a kid who doesn't know how to behave better. So we don't just teach kids to break other arms kids. But if you can show control, you feel confidence, right? And the person feels like, and especially for a kid, imagine you're a kid and you cannot move. And you try to move and you cannot move. And the other kid look in there and say, hey, we're good. It's a kid. Does that make sense? He probably goes, yeah, I think I am good. You know what I mean? Like, so this will be enough. Why I will teach the kid to punch another kid in the nose or in the eye? Does that make sense? It's just not necessary. I think that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, years ago, I was talking to Octavio, and I was like, oh, wouldn't it be great to teach my kids rear naked choke? And he said, no, because you can hurt them.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I heard that. It's like, hey, the point isn't to hurt them. The point is to stop the fight. The point is to not let this escalate to a point where anybody gets hurt. And I think that's a beautiful distinction.
Yeah. We used to say a lot, like, I also teach self-defense every 7:15 morning, Tuesday and Thursday at the gym. And it's open to everybody. And the most important technique that you should learn in self-defense is de-escalate. I would say the first rule is avoid the fight at all costs. You're not getting anything good from a fight. First, you don't know. Maybe this person get a knife. Maybe there's another friend on the other side of the bar who come behind you. You never know, right? And even though if you win the fight, maybe you have a nice t-shirt and you're going to lose the shirt. Maybe you have a nice Rolex and it's going to disappear in this fight. You know what I mean? There's nothing good come from a fight, man. And that's not the vibe and the energy that you want to put out in the world. You know what I mean? But yes, stand up for yourself. Every adult, and even a kid, if you start as a kid, they need this for life skills. Sometimes stand up for yourself is not just about a punch or it's about someone drunk in the bar. Sometimes it's your job. You have an interview and you go to an interview confident. You know what I mean? Like you sit down with your boss and you're not happy with what's happening and you have the courage to tell him, hey man, I'm not happy because of this. I don't feel this is fair. I know my valor. This build this confidence as a human being for life skills. That's, I think, kids is so important to do jiu-jitsu, right? And I want to have the best kids program first because I believe if you teach the kids well, we're going to have a better filter for everybody, right? My kid is on the program, so I want my kid to have the best as well. So that's why I'm always trying to bring the best program and things, because my kid's on the program too. Who don't want? I'm sure you want the best for our kids.
Absolutely.
I want the best for my kids. So if I have the opportunity to have my kids doing the best jiu-jitsu program in the world, I will put all my energy on that. So
there's something really powerful about it. And yeah, it's the techniques, but you just said it. It's like, I think whether you're a kid or an adult, you want to know that you're capable, period. Right? I think that's a big part. Like, hey, I'm capable.
It goes to a behavior aspect that we're talking.
But I don't have to do this. It's almost like, you're a samurai and you have a sword and you know how to use the sword really well. Yeah. But the ultimate honor is that you always keep it in the sheath. Like, you never have to take it out. Yeah. Like, that's how good you are at the sword, that you never...
Confident.
Yeah. I want to go back to when you started. I know that you started as a kid. When was the transition for you where it's like, hey, I don't just like this, I love it. I don't want to just do this for myself. I now want to help other people. Can you remember, and can you walk us through what that transition looked like for you?
For sure. I think I started martial arts at 4 years old. It was judo. And my school has this judo program. Judo is big in Brazil too. And then from 9, I find out jiu-jitsu, and I watched the UFC, right, in 93 with Royce. I mean, that's amazing. And I grew up with my cousins. I was the little one of my cousins, so we played soccer. At the end, I was the little one. I ended up getting either bullied or beat up by my cousins in a lovely way. I love my cousins, but it's just how kids do. You put like 5 boys together. I'm the little one. That is consequence to just born late. You know what I mean? Like, so, man, I need to protect myself. I'm not going to let my cousins keep beating me. And jiu-jitsu was a big tool, and to stand up for myself, or to even has the confidence to, man, you're not going to do this with me. Not anymore, right? And the transition that I find, so that was my first start. That's why. You need to know your why doing things. So it was to build my protection. And I grew up in Rio de Janeiro. It's an amazing city, but it's a little tough sometimes, right? It's Brazil. And what makes this transition from, as a kid behave, I just want to know how to defend myself, to I like this, is because I will have the best luck in the world. That in my way to see, my personal opinion, I start in one of the best gyms in the world. Under Vinicius and Otávio. Otávio was this amazing human being that you met, not just a phenomenal coach, but human being. Vinicius is the same, very knowledgeable coach, great human being. And they teach me how to fight, but they teach me also the values behind the martial arts. And I just got passionate because Vinicius also and Otávio teach me the lifestyle. Hey man, you got to take care of what you're eating. Why are you eating sweets? Why are you not eating a fruit instead? Why you have this for dinner? Why not this? Right? This is going to make you stronger. You know why? What are you doing during the afternoon? Oh, I'm watching TV waiting for the evening train. Why? Why you not go hiking in Pedra da Gávea? Oh, Vinicius, I remember, was 15 years old, and he called me Lang, my last name. Lang, you have skinny legs. I said, oh shit, I know that. You don't need to tell me that. I have mirror at home. I said, no, that's not the point. The point is, we're going to run on the sand tomorrow. We need to make our legs strong. So that was the first time that I really went to the beach to run on the sand, was with Vinicius. He picked me up, and he drove me to the beach, and we run on the sand. I was dying, right? Run is already hard. On the sand, soft sand. Yeah. Brazil, like 90 degrees, 95 degrees. And I was running for him. Come on, keep it up. And okay, I got this. It was good. It was it was my coach. I was so nice and honored to have him help me on that. But the end was even better. When we finished the running, oh man, let's grab a water. Let's this, that. No, let's jump in the ocean. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's the workout, the lifestyle. So they teach me way more than the master. Let's jump in the ocean. But we need a shower now. No, we're going to shower in the ocean. Then, boom, jump in the ocean. You're in the nature ocean. Then you feel good. The water is cold. And then you get out. And now we have shower. Now we have a coconut water. So it's this balance that I find that I have great coaches. So I think that's making me get passionate in jiu-jitsu. And for some point, I just want to be in the gym the whole time. because I have a great group, great friends, great community. The vibe was good, and I want to be good. And then pretty soon, I had this competitive nature that comes from my dad. My dad was competing in everything, first in soccer, then in business. And I was just getting the taste. I thought, man, this is amazing. I can be good in something, seeing my friends every day. Does that make sense? So I just decided on my 14, 15 that I want to be like my coach. Or I want to be like this guy I was watching, like Lev Vieira or Fernando Tererê or another guy who was doing really well back in the day, Fábio Gurgel, another great fighters from back in the day, Libório. I said, man, I want to be like these guys. And then I started to compete. Since my 10 years old, that was my first competition. I take the test and I quit all the other sports in a good way to say. I was still doing, but just when I have a free time. And I was doing jiu-jitsu twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day.
Wow.
And then I started to do professional. And what I've continued to say, hey, we have the Worlds coming. You should fight. So you think? Yes. And then I fought, I think I was 16, 17 years old, and I fought the Worlds and I did good. And then I said, man, I want to do this. And then I never stopped.
Was it an easy transition to then coach others and to start doing seminars just because you had that modeled with guys like Octavio and others?
I think that make it easier because I have great coaches. And they put me to teach since the beginning. When you teach, you also learn, right? So every time I begin and walk into class, Otávio Vinicius say, hey, Lang, get this guy on the side and teach him his first class, teach him how break fall, how hip escape, teach him how defend a punch. So I was maybe a blue belt or a purple belt. I was already. And I think this make my jiu so much better. Make me better because it keep me remind me, right, that if you make things complicated too much, it doesn't work for most of people. Keep me remind me the basic jiu-jitsu, which is so important, is the most important one, and teach me a big lesson. If you're good on something, you should put yourself in service to help other people, right? You should use these skills for good. You should share this. And that was the lesson that I was learning doing that. So I start coaching kids with Otávio too. Otávio will teach a private. And Otávio, you want to sit on the private with me? Be the dummy in a good way to say. So of course, I'll be with him like 2-3 hours, right? Just helping him the privates. I was helping the private. Wasn't for me, but I was learning. And this make my jiu-jitsu better in many aspects, not just as a competitor, but also I was learning how to teach. Does that make sense? Been watching him all the time, the way he do things, I was learning how to teach. So,
well, I've even seen since we met in 2016, how developed your, and maybe it's just because English is a second language.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's just the language barrier. I've seen you get better at coaching. I've seen you get better at teaching.
Yeah.
A lot of that is under Octavio's tutelage, but what have you learned since being in the States about that, about the actual art of teaching and the art of coaching? Has anything changed?
Yeah, I mean, the concepts, I think, will be always the same for most of people when you teach something to someone. And you got to really mean good. You cannot show up to collect money. If you work for your money, you don't deserve a penny. You gotta go deep on this and say, man, I want to help this guy. He trusts me, right? He's get up off the bed at 5 a.m. He drove here. He trusts on me to help him in something. It's not just about the payment. What kind of human being is me if I get that lazy and don't prepare something for this guy so he can evolve, right? It's already hard for someone to take this decision. I cannot make this harder. I got to make it easier. That's my job. And I have to have character and commitment to do my best. And I always tried, I never was like the guy who, I know enough. I would sit back and I would just, no. If you do, that's like water. The water starts to get dirty. You need to keep moving. The water keep moving, right? It's knowledge. You got to keep feeding yourself. It's the real. It's the river. When you stop the water there, it starts to get dirty. It's got to be flowing in movement. So I always research. I'm open-minded. You got to be humble to learn from other people. I have good friends also who influence a lot, like Roger is one of them. Roger's, poor man, I learned so much from Roger, right? You sit down 5 minutes of Roger and you're going to learn so much, right? Not just the technique, but his mindset, the way he see things, the way he talk things. I learn a lot from all my training partners, like Felipe, Orlando. We all always sit after the class together and we start to study things together. Man, how did you do this? How did you cut my arm like this? Show me again. And then we start to find solutions to escape to the arm bar. And next training, he cannot do this arm bar anymore. And then he needs to find out a different way. And then we study again. Does that make sense? And this makes us evolve. And I research, man. I read, I watch fights. I'm always open mind. If a purple belt or a blue belt, they try to show me something that I saw online or they saw in the tournament, I don't gotta say, man, you're a blue belt, you don't know anything. No, man, I will sit down and say, show me.
Mm-hmm.
Why you think that's the best way? And he will show me the best way. And maybe it is the best way. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
People can be smart enough to figure out sometimes. And if you think you know everything, that's when you stop to learn.
What do you think are some of the misconceptions that people that haven't done jiu-jitsu have? Like, what do you wish you could tell everyone that hasn't had a chance to come in, or maybe it's had, because you may not know this, but I had a couple of bad experiences before I met Octavio, and it turned me off. And it was the vibe, and it was the culture, and it was the people that was doing it. It had nothing to do with jiu-jitsu, but it was like I don't want to be around these douchebags.
Yeah,
I don't need to prove to these guys I'm a tough guy. I want to learn jiu-jitsu, and that was like overwhelmingly like what the vibe was. And I'm sure a lot of people have that misconception that it can only be this one way. So I've always wondered like what you would say to that, or anybody that's just kind of, it's like, who is this guy sitting here? Like what could he tell me that could really make me want to get curious enough to try it?
Well, you just say something that's really important. Like, I mean, sometimes people look for the fitness aspect and they end up falling in love. Sometimes people come for the self-defense aspect and they find out a big lifestyle behind that, which is not just defend yourself, but the wellness and the friends and the community that you make it. Mm-hmm. And I think I want to try to make an analogy here. It's not because your first girlfriend or boyfriend didn't know how kiss that you're going to hate boys or hate girls or even hate a girl. Does that make sense? Uh-huh. Look how big jiu-jitsu is.
Yeah.
Look, jiu-jitsu is growing so much and keep growing all around the globe. Japan, US, doesn't matter where, jiu-jitsu is everywhere. Mm-hmm. If it's everywhere, there's something magic about that, right? It's not because you have a bad luck to step to the wrong spot. That means this is not good, right? Like, it's like, I kissed this person and it was a bad kiss. I never gonna kiss in my life. So I think it was good. Does that make sense? Like, man.
It's a great analogy.
Look around.
You don't swear it off.
Oh my God. Yeah. How many jiu-jitsu schools you have around?
Yeah.
Right? And the entire globe is spread around. Change the way people fight. How people used to fight back then. On their feet. Goes to the ground, the fight stop. Mm-hmm. Right? It changed the way people fight in the entire world. Mm-hmm. When the Grace family came and did the UFC, said, whoa. Even the guy who was the comment say, I don't know what's happened there, but the guy's quitting. Why he quit it? He don't even know what triangle choke is. It changes. After that, everybody, okay, that's a different way to fight. And now, if you don't know ground, if you don't know jiu-jitsu, you cannot even step in a cage. You don't stand a chance, right? So it changes. That's something magic behind that. Let's go beyond the self-defense. It's the community. It's the friends. It's the loyalty. It's the camaradas thing. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. We have each other back. We help each other to get better every day in everything, right? So that's something magic about it. If you never tried, you should. Mm-hmm. And maybe if you have a bad experience, give yourself one more try, right? Make sure you're in a good school. Research the coach. If you go in a school, research who is this guy? How much experience he has? What is this history behind him, right? It's like anything. You're going to buy a car. You want to make sure it's a good car. Mm-hmm. Not just show up one day and buy a bad car and you have a bad luck, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been to a lot of schools, but Rio BJJ is the best. Now,
I appreciate that.
That's biased from me because you're my coach.
Yeah.
And the things that you just described, that's what I get to be blessed by, the people. But what I'm about to say will mean more because my wife she doesn't suffer fools. You know what that means?
Yeah.
She's a tough customer.
Yeah.
And when she walked in, she said, this is the most beautiful jiu-jitsu school I've ever been in. Now, awesome. I've been trying to get her to do jiu-jitsu for, going on 8 years.
Yeah.
And nothing I say has ever made a lick of difference.
Yeah.
But just last week, she's like, maybe I'll try this women's self-defense class.
That's so cool.
And so to me, that's the greatest compliment and testimonial you could have, is that somebody who hasn't done it, somebody who's been resistant for probably the reason that a lot of females are. It's the close proximity, the fact that it's predominantly male for lots of reasons. If she says those things, it means you're doing a lot of things right.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. You see, in the self-defense, I think, especially when you put the females together and you can separate, it's make them feel more comfortable sometimes. So that's why I put the women's class too. It's make them feel more comfortable. I think we should learn to defend ourselves against any person. But you can also have a nice class just for females and they feel more comfortable. You know what I mean? Like, and one thing that I think is really important is you manage the behavior inside the gym. Not like you try to be a military and don't let people do this or that. But there's some kind of jokes. There's some kind of behavior that I don't want on my gym. Because I always say to the students, if you don't feel comfortable to bring your wife and your kids here, it's not a good place for you. Why are you going to keep going every day to a place when you don't feel confident or comfortable to bring your wife or to bring your kids? There's something wrong with that place. Right? So manage the way people treat people inside the gym. The kind of jokes sometimes they do is also important. Because as you say, you got to manage the environment. You got to make sure it's a good environment to bring your kids, to bring your wife, or something wrong with that place. So I always try to manage the environment. Not like I don't let people do this or that. We do jokes, you know that, but we do good jokes, right? And try to keep a positive environment. Why would you think it's a good joke if this joke is putting your friend down? It's just you laughing. There's something wrong with a joke, man. Does that make sense? So that's the kind of spirit that I like to, because if we do grow this kind of respect, friendship, like it's just make us all strong, make the community better. Then you see now your wife, okay, maybe I can try this. This is cool. I'm gonna learn to protect myself, but I don't need to behave like an idiot to look tough.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and I think that was one of the things that in meeting Octavio made such an impression on me. He's obviously very good at jiu-jitsu.
Oh my gosh.
But he didn't need to walk around with his chest out. He didn't need to tell dirty jokes. He didn't need to carry himself in a way that I think is so common that now, and especially hearing you say it, that's a lower level of jiu-jitsu where you have to do all that. And what you just described with the environment is a really hard thing to do. I know that firsthand. It's almost like you're a bouncer in a way, right? Kind of it's like you're managing personalities as gently as you can. Like, hey, that's not going to work here. That may have worked at your other school. That's not going to work right here. And that is not easy, but you can feel it when you go in Rio. And, you know, every place I've done jiu-jitsu, I've always had to travel to, you know, where Octagon was and other schools, you know, that I visited. It was never where my family could watch me do it. Now it's so close to where we live. They've come several times to watch me, which is a new experience for me, but it makes me want to also carry myself in the way that isn't, oh, well, my kids are here, so I got to change the way that I'm talking. It's like, hey, I don't know when they're literally, I don't know when they're going to walk in. I don't know when. They've surprised me a couple of times. And so it's reminded me, it's like, hey, I need to do exactly what you're describing. I need to act the same way that I would do at home around them, like up here, which I think is cool. I honestly, I think that's not very common. I don't know a lot of schools like that. Would you agree, or do you think that there are places?
I think.
I mean, maybe places with a big kids program.
It's hard to say. Like, I never like to talk about others. Like, what I can say is about the way I believe. Right, I try to always be ethical in the way. I don't like to talk down about other schools or other coaches. I believe that you hungry, and then you have Italian restaurant, then you have Mexican restaurant, Brazilian restaurants. Some people like Brazilian food. Some people like sushi. They not right or wrong sometimes, right? It's just different kind of food, right? And jiu-jitsu gonna have the same. But you have this jiu-jitsu that's more competitive only. And it's not friendly to everybody. It's more competitive, professional. the jiu-jitsu that I believe, it's got to be to everyone. So the program that I build is jiu-jitsu for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a 60 years old having a good time, and you can have a 20 years old have a good time since you organize the program. So you have fundamentals, all levels, advanced, that's more upper belts or competitors class. We just divide the program the way that everybody can have a good experience, right? And the environment, the gym, I agree. Of course, I agree 100%. It's not every gym like that. I know that. But I'm really trying to do the best I can in everything, because if we don't do that, the person who need most jiu-jitsu, they won't have access, right? So if just the big, strong guys who is already tough have access to jiu-jitsu, what about the main thing in jiu-jitsu, that's the weaker can defend against someone stronger, right? You are the bully and I'm the victim here. If the bully had more access to jiu-jitsu than me, what good are we doing here? Does that make sense? So I try to build the program for everybody, and everybody should feel welcome. And I hope I can accomplish that more and more of the time, getting better, getting feedback for people like you and friends that's around me. That's why I always try to surround myself with good people to make sure I can keep improving myself and getting better.
Well, it's not even been a month, but I think it's a really great start. And for those that don't know, it's riobjj.com.
Yeah.
If you're local to Dallas, it's in Lakewood. It's in the Mockingbird and Abrams shopping center called Lakeside.
Yes.
It's a beautiful facility. I feel like since the kids are doing it, I don't even want to say this because it's like, you know, when something's so good, it's like, okay, I want this to be popular, but at the same time, it'd be really cool if it, like, you know,
doesn't get you proud.
Yeah. You know, you hear a musical artist like, oh, this is so good, and I know it's going to get popular. I know that's going to happen, but it's been so cool for the kids to do it as you're ramping up to the grand opening, because it's like they're getting to be trained by a world champion in almost like a private setting from ground zero. It's like, hey, day one, this is what we get to do. As you develop this and you develop the brand of Rio BJJ, are there any things that you're really excited to experiment with, things that you've had ideas about that you really want to test out? I mean, you've obviously said some of them, and sure, there's places that have that feel, but maybe it's just because I've only done it for a handful of years, but it feels like it's exploding. Do you feel the same way? Because what's weird is like it's been around since the 90s. And I guess this is how I would explain it to somebody that doesn't know anything. It's like, well, it got really popular because of UFC. And so who it appealed to were the guys that wanted to be MMA fighters. But now it's like this second wave. I can't tell you how many dads I talk to. There's like, hey, I just started jiu-jitsu.
And I love it. Yeah.
I love it,
Yeah.
right? I can't tell you how many 4-year-olds with like 1 or 2 kids are like, I'm obsessed with jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, I know.
And I tell you more, I cannot count sometimes the parents who bring the kids, and they start to watch the kids, and they decide to sign up, right? So this happen a lot. They bring the kids, and they start to watch the kids, say, you know what? This is kind of fun. I want to try that. And they end up coming more than the kids to the gym. You know, like this happen a lot. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I think people start to realize, as we talked before, the benefits of jiu-jitsu. It's just not learn how to fight. It's go way far, way beyond than that. It's make you a better human being, right? Could you imagine you take decisions over pressure, and then you learn to take those decisions like over pressure and succeed on those decisions over pressure, right? It's a problem solved all the time. And then think about all the life skills that's involved: resilience, courage, fear. You learn if you learn how to manage your emotions, this is emotional. It's just so good for your life skills in everything you do, right? So I don't know, man. I think it's gonna go way more. It's just a big start of a big wave coming. You see schools everywhere, and I think now is a little bit better, because now I see you doing this, and I think it's super cool, and I admire your work because of that. First, you start like just teaching people how getting. Now, people are more prepared. Now you're already teaching coachings. That makes sense, because okay, you're doing this for so long. okay, I want to help other people to do a good job. This is going to avoid the first comments to have bad experience and think this is not good. Does that make sense? For example, if I share my knowledge or my experience doing this for 30 years with another coach, even though he's not from my staff or not from my school, I'm going to avoid the problem for you who never did jiu-jitsu, go to that school and think jiu-jitsu is bad, and then you start to talk bad about jiu-jitsu. Does that make sense? It's almost like you have a bunch of boats on the ocean, right? And you start to learn that, okay, I want my boat to get higher than the other boats. What is the best way to do that? The ocean. Everybody, there's room for everybody. I mean, we have 6 billion people around the globe. So if you make everybody good, right? So we talk about the bad kisser, right? The joke that I did acknowledge, right? So if everybody know how to kiss, does that make sense? You're not going to have
everybody wins.
Everybody wins. Does that make sense? So if the oceans come up, all the boats come up. So if you share the knowledge like you're doing, teaching another coach performance, behave like you're doing, this is great, because if I walk in for the first time to a CrossFit or to a performance gym and I have a good experience and I go and I tell my coworkers, man, how good it was, maybe he's not coming to your gym because it's not nearby his house, but they go to another one. And that's why I think it's happening for jiu-jitsu. People have more knowledge and they are more ready to share jiu-jitsu in a different way. It's not just a competitive way.
Yeah, I think it's a natural progression that if you're really that good at coaching, well, you should be coaching coaches. And then, you know, from a business standpoint, it's like it's not an accident that Rio BJJ feels a certain way, right? Those are deliberate decisions that were made, and I think those can be taught as well. And so that's something that I'm trying to figure out too. It's like, hey, you know, it's not just the coaching, but I get a lot of questions on, but how do you do this from a payment standpoint? You know, stuff that we would say, oh, it's not as exciting as the art of coaching, but all that stuff is in support so you can do the coaching. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, especially for you and Rio to teach others the thing that you're making okay. You know, it is okay to be a lifestyle. It is okay to think about, I've heard you say this, how can we do jiu-jitsu for forever?
Yeah.
Not just for this competition, forever. Yeah. And it's also just fun. I know that's weird to say for somebody that hasn't done it. It's like, what do you mean being close to somebody and, you know, like there's a danger that, you know, you could get submitted or choked or hurt, but it's just fun. Sometimes people ask, like, why are you going to do it? It's like, I find myself like giggling while I do it sometimes. Like I find myself just like having the best time of anything that I'm doing throughout the day. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it's that to me is like why I'll be doing it forever. That to me is like, oh, I'll never get tired of it.
I agree 100%. And think about a martial art that you can go intense and 100% without get hurt.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu. If we both doing striking, Muay Thai, and we decide, okay, I want to put my stress out and I want to go to hard today, we're going to start to punch each other. What's going to happen? Someone's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu can go full power, put your energy out, release the stress, and don't get hurt.
And I know that there's probably lots of strategy in all these different martial arts, but what you said, like the 1, 2, 3, like to be caught in that is like, oh man, you got me, you know? And it's like to do that back and forth. It's like this never ending game that you play. And then when you get to do it with people, the
human chess, right?
Yeah. And to do it with other people that, you know, have your best interest in mind. You know, they're not trying to kill you. They want, just like you described, like the guys that you're still workshopping and problem solving with. It's like, you know, all of those guys want the best for you. Hajar, Buchecha, like those guys want to see you succeed at the same time that they're succeeding. It's like all the, you know, all the ships are rising. All right. So last question before we close. You had mentioned that you're not just doing this for yourself, and a lot of the motivations for having a world-class kids program is because you have a son yourself.
Yeah.
Looking at where you want this to go, not just for yourself, but for the next generation, what are some of the things that you're thinking there? What are some of the goals you have, even for Enzo? Like, what would you hope for him to get out of this, knowing all that you know about jiu-jitsu?
So, it's a very good question. I think jiu-jitsu teaching us so much, like teach me, because I started as a kid. So I experienced that. So I know how important it was in my life, in every stage of my life, right? Middle school, high school, college, or try to look for a job. And I know how good this did for me. So I want him to be always the guy who think, how can I do better? I think the keep looking for improvement is the main thing, right? What happens in jiu-jitsu? You tap and you try again. You tap and you try. You don't tap and quit, right? The rounds keep going. The round is 10 minutes. If you tap in 2, you try again. If you tap in 3, you try again. You try again. I think that's one of the most valuable lessons is to keep the resilience and keep trying to figure out, because when you grow up with this environment and behave, I think you start to get ready for life because life is hard. That's the truth, right? I want him to be a champion, 100%. I will force him to be a champion? No. But I told him, go to jiu-jitsu like go to school. It's a life skill you must have. You don't need to be in jiu-jitsu every day, but I want you there twice a week at least. Because you're going to learn not just to defend yourself. You're going to learn how to overcome your fears. You're going to learn to be patient. You're going to learn to be kind with people. You're going to learn when you are the best in the room to still being kind and not start to behave like bad just because you are the best and you know everything. You're going to learn so many life skills because those 4 lines of the mats is going to teach you so much. I want you there. And I know the environment that we create is a lot of good people around, the coach, the staff, the other kids, right? A lot of kids that is like their parents are my friends, so I know the kind of people they are, the way they're raising. And if he wants to be the best, I'm there to support him, right? But if he's not the best, I want at least he try to be better than yesterday. That's what I tell him. It's more important for me that you try to be better than yesterday than be the best in the world. If you want to be the best in the world, I have no doubt you can, right? But it's more important you try to be better than yesterday. Or if you tap, you're trying to figure out again and not just quit or sit down and cry because you lose the game, right? So that's, for me, is the most important thing to have in there.
That's so good. I think that one of the challenges that a lot of adults face is a fear of failure.
Yeah.
In jiu-jitsu, you're failing
So many
multiple times.
Yeah.
You can't do jiu-jitsu without failing.
Yeah.
If you do jiu-jitsu without failing, you're just doing it by yourself. You're not actually, you're doing it with a dummy.
Doing solid drill. And you have no mirror to see your fails, right?
So for a kid to just say, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
Of course you'll make mistakes.
Yeah.
I think kids that are trying to please others and figure out what they're good at, to be exposed to some controlled environment where they're failing over and over again and it's okay, that may be one of the most powerful aspects of that. But I couldn't agree more with, and I'm sure it's the same for boys and girls, but because I'm the dad of 3 girls, I want them, when they're 16, to know that that sword they could take out if they needed to.
Anytime.
But they never need to.
Yeah.
But they know that when they say to a boy, hey, don't do that they can say those words with great confidence.
Yeah.
And I say the same thing because we ski and we ride bikes and we, play sports and all that is for fun. But I've told them jiu-jitsu is like making your bed. It's just something that we do here. It's just something that we have to practice. We have to get exposure to because I want you to be safe. And I want you, and I've told them that, I want you that when you're older and you say these words, that you know that someone will listen to you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's the same for a boy too.
100%. And build awareness, right? Like,
yeah,
my mom is really good at sayings, right? And she'll say, the smart one is the solve problems, but the wise one, right, is the one who never needs to solve problems because he never put himself on that situation, right? You're smart, yes, because you solve the problem. The wise one who never needs to solve the problem because you never put himself on that scenario, on that situation. That makes sense? So you start to build awareness in jiu-jitsu, teach you this kind of awareness. So maybe you're in the bar and you start to drink a beer, and then you start to feel the behavior, the guy is a little bit different, and you're not just naive or innocent, you don't see what's going on. You analyze everything. So, man, I don't know. I'm not gonna let this guy drive me home. He's drunk. And self-defense, it's it's everywhere. It's everything. It's the awareness, right? It's self-preservation, right? I'm protecting myself, not getting the car of this guy drunk. Does that make sense? So I protect myself, decide to don't let this guy walk me home because I just met him. I don't really know who he is, even though his smile is nice. Does that make sense? So it's this awareness that we teach in classes, and we start to build this together. That's why I say it's a life skill. For my son, it's a must. You go to school, you learn how to swim, you learn jiu-jitsu. Right? So it's a must.
I can't think of a better skill than learning how to pay attention.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
I can't think of a better skill. I hope that anybody that listens to this will investigate jiu-jitsu in some way. I just think it's been life-changing for me. It's been life-changing for my family. If they're in Dallas, I hope that they'll stop by.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I hope too, because it's so much love that I'm put on this project with other very good people that means well, because we want to bring something that adds to the community, right? So we want to bring something that helps the community to go better and stronger. And if you guys want to stop by, we're offering a 1-week free trial, right? So no commitment. You just
after that, put in the discount code BPR Institute.
Yeah. We do 1 week free trial. You try, your kids can try, and no commitment. And if you like, you join the gym. And if you're not, we just happy for you to learn a little bit what jiu-jitsu is about it. And if you're curious, you can at least see what it is, you know?
Well, thank you for today. This has been an honor for me.
Yeah.
And man, I appreciate you've done everything for me and for my family.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. I know how knowledgeable you are on the fitness community and everything that you'll be done. Like, as I was telling before, what you do is so amazing because it's make other people's lives better, right? The fitness make people's life better, right? We feel better every day. People think it's just about look yourself in the mirror, but it's not. Your mind's more sharpened, your mood's better. It's the everyday. I want to get 7 years old and be able to take something that was in the ground. Is that pick up my groceries from the ground? I want to be able to do that. So it means a lot to be here, and I truly appreciate your time. And I hope we can see each other again here again in the future.
Awesome. Thank you.
Subscribe!